The newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The NDRRMC warns that around 500,000 residents living near the Taal volcano will be affected in the event of a violent eruption. NDRRMC head Ricardo Halad said that government agencies are bracing for a possible worst-case scenario to calibrate their disaster plans. PHIVOLCS earlier recommended the mandatory evacuation of 5 high-risk barangays in Agoncillo and Laurel due to phreatomagmatic eruptions last week. But it is business as usual in some parts of Batangas. Halad assures residents that there are enough assistance and even COVID-19 vaccines for evacuees. PHIVOLCS recorded 74 volcanic earthquakes in Taal over the past 24 hours. Out of this 74 quakes, 13 were low frequency and 61 were volcanic tremor events, including low-level background tremors. High levels of sulfur dioxide were also observed, with steam-rich plumes rising to 1,000 meters. The SO2 emission averaged over 6,400 tons a day on July 10. The National Union of People's Lawyers lauds the Supreme Court's rules to require law enforcers to wear body cameras. NUPL President Edre Olalia said that the resolution is grounded on abundant experience and considered the clamor to address human rights violations. Olalia also notes that the High Court incorporated provisions which were recommended by the NUPL. However, he warned that some provisions may provide loopholes and opportunities for circumvention on the ground. The SC has recently issued the rules on body-worn cameras for law enforcement agents implementing arrest and search warrants. And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Watching Bloomberg TV Philippines on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. As most countries start to open up again, the World Health Organization says people must remain vigilant as COVID-19 variants threaten the world's gains against the virus. Let's watch this.
Do you think, Doctor, that the evolution of COVID has slowed?
I wouldn't say that at all. What we're seeing now is, of course, a diverging pandemic or a dual pandemic. There are parts of the world where vaccination coverage has reached the point where there is a slowdown, certainly of severe cases and people being ill enough to be hospitalized. But there are large parts of the world, and you were just naming a few countries where there are surges, where there's oxygen shortages, where there's a lack of beds and increasing mortality. In the last 24 hours, we've had close to 500,000 new cases being reported and about 9,300 deaths. Now, that's not a pandemic that's slowing down.
Yeah.
In fact, in 5 of the 6 WHO regions, cases are rising, and mortality in the African continent has gone up by about 30 to 40% in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. Doctor, have you seen any new variants that could have resulted with, us vaccinating populations whilst cases are going up?
So, there are several reasons for why this is happening. Why are globally cases going up, and why are so many countries seeing a steep rise in cases? And I should add that these include countries that have unvaccinated populations and countries that have vaccinated 30, 40, or 50% of their population. So the reasons are the Delta variant is certainly the most transmissible, the most dangerous variant of the virus that we have seen so far. In fact, the original virus, if one infected person could spread it to 2 or 3 people, this variant, the Delta variant, one infected person can infect 8 people. They're also infectious for longer. So that's the first reason. The second is increased social mixing, what's called pandemic fatigue. People are, getting back to their normal lives, either by compulsion because of economic reasons or otherwise. And third is the relaxation of public health and social measures. We've seen many countries and sub-regions and countries dropping all of the measures, including masking and physical distancing. And the fourth is the slow pace of vaccination globally. So these are the things that are contributing to the rise in cases that we're seeing over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
But is it likely that we'll see new variants in the coming months or quarters?
It's quite possible. We cannot predict, but the virus is evolving and mutating all the time. So we're already seeing within the known, like within Alpha and within Delta, we're seeing additional mutations, which can be quite dangerous. They could confer properties where the virus actually becomes even more resistant to vaccines. So, of course, the worst case scenario is that the virus becomes resistant to the existing vaccines, which has not happened so far. There's been some impact on the vaccine efficacy, but most of the vaccines that are being used are still highly efficacious against severe disease. But this is something we cannot predict. So it's really a race between getting our populations covered through vaccination and maintaining the measures till then to prevent the surge in cases. Because we know that the more the transmission that's happening, the more easily the virus can only mutate when it's actively multiplying and transmitting. So that's the way to stop further variants from arising.
Millennial nostalgia has fueled a boom in Pokemon trading card-related businesses. This Bloomberg Quick Take tells us if we're going to have to catch them all.
Isn't about investing in stocks, but something many of us have invested time and money into for decades. We are talking about Pokemon. Nostalgia and stimulus checks have fueled a boom in Pokemon trading card activity. Well, let's get right to Lizette Chapman, who joins us live from San Francisco. She wrote about this for Bloomberg yesterday. Lizette, should I be calling my mom right now and seeing if she can find my brother's old Pokemon cards?
You wouldn't be the first one to do that. There is the value has exploded over the past year. As has the volume of people, finding these old cards in their closets and sending them in and finding out in some cases they're worth thousands of dollars.
What?
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Well, Lizette, sorry, continue.
No. I was just saying that, in some cases, some have been worth as much as $1 million. Those are super rare. Some, of course, are worth nothing. So it's kind of a crapshoot, depending on the condition and also how rare they are, of course.
So, Lizette, you actually spoke to millennials who are doing this right now for this story, and I love that detail. I'm curious, we've seen a lot of euphoria this year, whether it's meme stocks or Dogecoin. Do the investors, if you want to call them that you spoke to, is there any nervousness that, these boom times won't last? They have to sell these cards now?
You know, it really depends on the collector. Some people, like one gentleman, Mark from Random Lake, Wisconsin, he was so in love with some of his cards that he just won't sell them. He's got a binder full of about 100. Other ones he sold. It helped him with a down payment for a condo. He, you know, isn't as worried about the fact that you know, the values might crash because he's holding on to some of them for sentimental reasons. However, some people are a little bit nervous that, you know, when a lot of the professional grading sites like Beckett's and PSA, ones that went offline and stopped accepting new submissions earlier this year because they were just absolutely overwhelmed with people sending in these, you know, mountains and mountains of cardboard to be graded and authenticated and then, you know, valued. Once they get through that big lump sum, there's a possibility that the super rare cards might not be that rare, and we'll probably find that out in the months to come.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later again at 2:15 as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.